people like the disabled or people who are essentially getting food stamps, and then, seeing who they sell them to, yada, yada. Now, at the end of the day, you might be saying, well, if I don't have my pain pills, I can't survive because I take some of them or use some of them. Or if I don't have my food stamps, I can't survive. Da 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 da. Magic just appears. Hence, ... the institutions. Because where do you put people that basically are screaming and angry and full of hate and how dare you take my pain pills away? You put them into the mental institution where you then give them their pain pills under the direction of a doctor. Or I can't work, I need food stamps. Well, if you can't work and you need food stamps, but yet you're selling your food stamps, where do you put those people? You could put them in jail. But what Trump is, I think, getting at is he will send them to mental facilities, right? To try and get them back on track. Some of them will, but remember, most people cannot be fully saved because they need a lot. They got to have a check every month. They got to have health insurance. They got to have clothing. They got to have food. They got to have a roof over their head. They got to have a support system of people that are working with them. Many of you don't realize that a lot of the money that the middle class is paying in taxes currently goes to supporting a lot of the people who can't work. And that's creating.
Miss Pointer Lover, I think you made a good point there. Here's my question. There was mental institutions back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We tore all these buildings down. There ain't very many mental institutions left, and you got to be in pretty bad shape back then to be admitted into a mental institution. And we demolished all the buildings. Remember back in the 80s, everybody, but this is horrible what we're doing. This is like what other countries did, like what London or England used to do. Insane asylums were huge over there. They were actually taking people that did not have mental disabilities and locking them up in mental institutions, not because they were crazy, because they were doing experiments on people. The country's going broke, and now all of a sudden you got all this money to build mental institutions. It ain't adding up. It ain't adding up. And most of these people are not mental. They're tired of being used, abused, and pushed aside. And it's typical for these people. We've seen a lot of rich people where they can't handle their own family, and they lock them up in mental institutions, what are left, or nursing homes. I'm dumb, but I ain't that dumb. We've been through this. I used to live over there in Illinois. They used to have the Tinley Park mental hospital where people would stay. And then you always had people, and that was gated. They had a gate around there, right? And I remember driving by as I was a kid, and you would see people out there walking around, and some in white gowns, some. But here was the thing: there was always people escaping from that institution in Tinley Park, Illinois. And what did they end up doing there? They ended up closing the facility. Why? Because they were committing crimes against humanity, and they weren't taking care of the people, right? Because they were saying it just cost too much. And now you're gonna build mental institutions, and that's your answer to this whole problem? I don't think so, President Trump. The way they're talking about you're going to build it, but you're going to end up being in it, is from what all these other politicians are saying. I mean, that's just crazy. Now, I watched another guy last night who was talking about, this is bullcrap. It's like our country is becoming another country. And I was like, I told you. It's almost like a magical shift or something they did, and now all of a sudden we're back in 1930. It's just crazy. Let me see what Miss Pointer will ever say. We had a huge one here in Michigan called, we will see, they had many buildings. A lot of people didn't belong in there. I live 20 minutes from there. Yeah, there was a lot of people that didn't belong in there either, but that's the answer of the government is lock everybody up, right? Lock everybody up. And is this a call to make people to steal people's money? It might be. Well, he's not fit to take care of himself. Well, he's got $50 trillion. Not no more. He's crazy, right? He can't handle. He don't know how to spend his money. He don't, and the state will have to take that money, right? So if the state will get that money or whatever, he's not right to handle his money. Yeah, this ain't good. What's happening? And I think this will be the nail in the coffin that sinks the ship, because I think Charlie Kurtz. There was a couple people I was in a chat and talking, and they were saying, well, that's what Charlie Kurtz was saying: build more institutions and lock these people up. They're crazy. That's probably what was the nail in the coffin for Charlie Rose or Charlie Kurt, whatever his name was. So this is not good. It's not good. And what are you going to do? Lock 352 million people up in a mental institution? They're not violent. Yeah, they have mental problems, but they're not violent. You're going to spend more than putting these people on disability and giving them a check each month. You're going to spend more in a mental institution. You're going to spend triple that. They're not making sense. They're going to spend more money. It takes more resource and more money and more faculty and more people to take care of an insane asylum. You're going to have people being abused, raped, tortured. I don't know how many women that were raped in mental institutions and had children by the people that were supposed to be protecting them. It's over with. And if this goes into plan, I have a disability, but I don't go out into the streets killing and wiping, and stealing and doing everything else. I think it's a bad call for Mr. Trump to, I can see maybe. Here's the thing: there's already hospitals for for people with mental problems. In hospitals, right? They take you when you're on. And this guy here is saying, this guy, I forget what his name is. Let me see what this guy. Every week, this guy's coming out that we're watching right now. You're gonna be getting a check in the mail for subsidy, whatever them checks were that the government was hanging out. This guy every week makes them. It's already been passed, but everyone in his chat is going, there's been nothing passed. There is no money. So it's just a bunch of crap. But what is this guy's name? Let me see what his channel is. Social Security Disability. Well, this guy's telling everybody they're going to lose their disability, and people are watching them in their houses. They're filming people. Well, that's true. But for one, in Indiana, it is not easier to get disability today than it was 12 years ago, like this guy is saying on his channel. That's a lie. Today, you have to see numerous psychologists and doctors to get on disability. And you ain't even going to get on disability right away. It's going to take forever. So these people saying, well, disability is easier to get on now than it was back then, they're lying to you, folks. It took a long time for some of these people to get on disability. They had to work, and you could look at the people and tell they had a disability or something was wrong with them, and they would deny them, right? So what are we looking at? We're looking at the majority is saying, from what I can get out of YouTube, is these people are in power. We put them in power, but now they turned on us. And I'm like, what's new? That happens every time we vote someone in. They're for the people. They're gonna dismember, all this stuff and everything. Yeah, lies. Yeah, a disability in anywhere in America is hard to get. These people saying, "Well, it's easier now to get on disability." Yeah, you're full of crap. For one, they test you for everything. You got to talk to numerous doctors. It's just unbelievable. The paperwork will drive you literally crazy. And what are we seeing here? We're seeing mass confusion. This is the most horriblest thing. He shouldn't even have done that. Yeah, acknowledge there's a mental problem in America, but it's mainly not America. It's people that came here from other countries that brought on the madness. Politics, religion, all these things played a part of the mental illness. You created the politics, you created the religion, and you also created the madness and the society that we live in with freedoms that no other country has. That's true. And them countries don't have the death and the murder and the madness like we do. And they handle mental illness in other countries totally different than what America does. Let me see what Miss Pointer Lover is saying. Most people need a disability lawyer to help them try and get it, and some people afford an attorney or can't afford an attorney. Exactly. I couldn't afford an attorney. I had to wait. I've recently been on disability, but I worked many years, been in many accidents. This was something that followed me from when I was a child, a young teen, and had an accident. Uh, and the doctors said, "Oh, you're going to be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. There's nothing wrong." But back in the 70s and 80s, they didn't know that much about concussions and brain injuries. Like I said, there's days I have good days, and then there's days I have bad days. I just don't. I just want to sit, relax. Your brain's not working right. Things ain't going right. It is what it is. These are the scientists and the doctors that know, right? Uh, what disability is, or mental illness, or a brain injury, or stuff like that. And to go ahead and say, well, we're just going to build mental institutions, and anybody on Social Security or disability or, uh, voicing their opinion will be going to a mental institution. And that was the worst thing these people could have said. I think it was the worst thing. I do believe I watched Charlie Rose or Charlie Kurtz talking about that he was all for mental institutions and locking people up. I think that was the nail in the coffin. Most of these disabilities are brought on from people that were in wars. Most of our mental people, Mr. President Trump, are people from military. I hate to say it. You don't want to hear it. I know it. You created the machine, and the machine breaks down. And most of them are. Most of these homeless people are vets. Most of the people that are out killing and raping have been military. Some of them, yes, that's true. The machine broke down. You can't throw 352 million people in a mental institution. For one, the first candidate they're going to say is going to be you. I hate to say it, sir. Yeah, I'm dumb, but I ain't that dumb. This is just causing more. I would imagine there's going to be more radicalism now that he's out there, that these people out there talking about mental institutions. When we had mental institutions all over the United States in the 80s and 90s, and what did the states do? They closed them. Why? Because it was too expensive. It cost too much. And most of the people that were going there, like I said, were being abused, experimented on, and raped and killed. And what did the states do? They closed most of them. I know they closed the one over where I used to live when I was younger. Once in a while, there'd be a news break. Someone escaped from the mental institution in Tinley Park. Lock your doors. And yeah, this is nuts. And I got a brain injury, and it's just nuts. It's nuts. Let me see what Pointer Lover says. I don't think we will survive 4 years of him. I don't think he will either. I mean, honestly, some people are saying, he's just making bad calls. But you have to remember, he also is in his 70-something years old now. And he's at that time where I wouldn't do that. There's more better ways to spend that money. I can't believe it that, and here the government is getting ready to shut down this month, right? Trump can't come to an agreement with them and everything, but you want to go ahead and build more mental institutions. There's other countries that are saying he's possessed, or this is Yahtzee all over again. They might be right. I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know. I think it's very sad. Very sad. Very sad that they would even think of that when we just tore down all these mental institutions back in the 80s and 90s, when people uproared that their family members were being abused and killed and hurt and not treated for right. Lawsuits were huge in the mental institution department. They couldn't keep up with it. They were getting sued constantly. And people were winning because they were proving that there was people putting cameras and stuff inside the mental institutions and watching these people be abused. You'll lose that war, President Trump. I just think it's a stupid call. Yeah, I agree. Some of these people need mental help. But you know what? They wouldn't be in the predicament they're in if they didn't get kicked out of their house or swindled out of a house from a real estate company or a bank, which then caused stress and madness and their mental illness. I think we're going to let the Lord handle this in Jesus' name, and it don't look good. Like I said, you can talk about that, but like I said, Charlie was just a puppet for the main puppet master. And now Charlie's gone, and what did Charlie talk about? He was all for bringing back mental institutions and buildings. And we've seen what happened there. So And then now what's Trump talking about? Mental institutions. So we know Charlie was the puppet from what they're saying. I don't know. I'm an idiot myself. Uh, and you just can't lock people up in a mental institution if they're not violent and not hurting anybody. But this is what the rich do when they can't deal with somebody with a disability, or they don't understand. What do? They lock them or send them away somewhere to another country. You know, they feel disgusted by it. They feel ashamed. Now we can't see. We can't let the public know that I have an autism child. Well, they're ashamed of it. Believe it or not, at one time in this country, it was getting better with the mental health because people were acknowledging, hey, my family members were in the war. They came home, they have mental problems and stuff like that. You're crapping on all the military families and military men that went to war, fought so we can have our freedom, and these people can make millions and billions and quadrillions of dollars. And now you're saying the people that saved this country are mentally ill and their families are mentally ill, mainly because, I'm not going to lie to you, they were after so long, the government started using them to experiment new stuff, which caused most of this stuff that we're dealing with right now. The proof is there. It's all over YouTube. Check it out. Right? Yes, it's true. Military guys went into the military thinking that they were going to be something, and actually they were experimenting on experimental new drugs and new things. And they were paid. And that's just it, right? After they got out of the military and they went into society, had kids, had whatever, but they didn't know what the effects would be years down the road. And what happened? Well, it passed over into the genes. Now you have military guys that came home that were infected or experimented on, had children. Who knows what, it was just a vicious cycle of evil. Who's really the evil, or the twisted doctor, right? The evil doctor or whatever. I don't know. This is turning out to be a nightmare. How, for one, in civilian life, if you're hired to do a job by somebody and you go in there and the next thing you know, you take over the company, or now you're the boss. Hey, get out of here. We didn't hire you to be the CEO, Mr. Kramer. We hired you to cut the grass. Do you guys get my point? Right? Do you get my point? If you were to do that in civilian life, if you were hired to do a job and then you went in there and told your boss, you ain't the boss no more, I am, what would happen to you? You'd be fired. And it's the same thing with the government. We hire these people to work for the citizens, and they get in there and tell the citizens, I'm the boss now. Does that make sense to anybody? I have a disability. I'm just asking you folks, does that make sense to you folks? Once they get in there, they don't do a dang thing that the American citizen needs. Now they're in power, and you're all peasants. Yeah, $300 million on a ballroom because it just wasn't good enough. 300 million could have went far for the American people and our roads and buildings. A ballroom for dancing or whatever. Who dances? None of them. I don't know what it is. What's the talk? What's the talk of the United States? It's going down. They're not putting up with it no more. The military won't take orders from them anymore, and they'll just, for one, the military is the people's military. And what are some of these people that I've been watching saying? What are they going to, the military will no longer take orders from the government. It's the people's military. Uh, or they'll just cut off the demand of people, and no one will join the military anymore, and the military will dwindle away, and it'll be gone because people won't support something that's killing them, or they have no control over. So yeah, it's crazy, but we can see now. Even an idiot like me can see what they're doing. And that's unbelievable. And I have to say, it's only through God that I'm seeing this, because if I get anything right, it is surely all glory to God. Yes, Miss Pointer Lover, the institutions have been gone many years. They tore them all down. Why? Because it was crimes against humanity. People were being more abused than anything. It was horrible. I mean, it was horrible. And they tore them all down. I used to live by one in Chicago. If you don't look up the research, 1980, Tinley Park, Illinois, mental institution. Yeah, gated community. Yeah, and people did escape, and people were being abused. Uh, they did help people, but there was people in there getting abused. They went in, they got better, they got on medication, and some of them were allowed to leave and go back into society. But that alone cost more than what we're doing with putting people on disability and letting them stay at home or putting them in an apartment, you know, or whatever. That's the cheaper route. You start building all these buildings, now you need people to work there, right? You got to pay them. Now you're housing all these people, food, all this stuff. It's gonna cost more. It's gonna cost more. And the mental illness is brought on because we live in a high stress country. No way around it. That's no way around it. Our mental illness was brought on by our own country and society. Millions, 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 and millions, and millions, and millions have mental illnesses. Even the people that are in Congress, Senate, and the military have disabilities. What do we do? What do we do? Well, I'll tell you what, but you're not going to listen. And it's coming from the Lord. We'll no longer put our humans in harm's way. We don't need to have manned military. That alone is causing our stress, causing stress. You know how stressful it is for a woman and child to stay home in America as their husbands or wives go off and fight to protect another country and the civilians there, and their husband or wives are here with the kids or whatever. That's very stressful. You don't even have military guys that ain't on tour helping them. When I was growing up, military brothers helped military brothers and their families. It was a tight unit. They helped. Not no more. Not no more. And don't tell me, because I've spent time at the VA hospital in Indiana with my grandfather, listening to some of these old timers talk, right? Yeah, they loved their country. That's why they did what they did, to save their country. And I'm not going to lie to you, most of themselves a bunch of shit. They themselves were lied to, puppets. Hell, most of them came back with cauliflower ball sacks because they used sex as a weapon in some of these countries. Horrible. I don't even want to get into it. Because I have a disability, and I'm not going to let it wreck my life. These people looking in your house, trying to get you. Listen, these people already ran you through the ringer, tested you for everything. The scientists, the doctors, everybody saying you have a disability. And now this guy is telling people, hey, they're watching you through your cameras and through your. They got people walking around watching you in case you do anything, that's against the. For one, your professional scientists and doctors put these people on disability. Why are you following them around? When the professionals have already said to the state and to the government, these people have a disability. Here's the proof. And you're following them around, and this ain't making sense. Let me see what Miss Pointer Lover is saying. My uncles were in the Navy, and the fifth one was in the Army in veterans. He took his own life 2 years after he came back. Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. Don't even get me started with RFK Jr. I heard the rumors that one of his family, but that was before he was a kid. He didn't know about it until he grew up, that he realized that his family sent one of his family members to a mental institution, right? He came out and said that, I think, didn't he, Miss Pointer Lover? I think he said something like that. And he said, yeah, it was true, right? And even his family had a disability, right? JFK, a lot of people didn't know, had a disability, had very bad back problems and stuff from the war when he was in the war, right? Yeah. I mean, him being against vaccines and all his crazy medical advice. Well, I don't think he's against vaccines. He's against untested vaccines. Bobby Kennedy is saying he's not against it. What he's against is you're pumping this stuff into people and it's not been tested. It's got mercury in it. It's got all this stuff in it. Now, all I can say is I was vaccinated before it was a law. Before you stepped into a school, a public school, your children had to be vaccinated for all kinds of stuff. We were vaccinated. You remember that gun they came up and they shoot you in the arm? And you had a round circle with a bunch of pin marks in it on your arm, right? Big like a gun or something. They come out, just a bunch of needles, it hit you in the arm. We still need the old ones. Polio, measles, exactly. These are things that we all had when we were kids. We're still alive. Now, I don't know if there was any mercury in that, but we're still alive. We don't have polio. You know, we still need the old ones. Polio, yeah, yeah. You know, I don't have all the answers. The only thing we can do is turn towards God, who knows all and has all the answers. Yes, I had a gun one in school and a sugar cube. Yep. Yeah, I remember them. Yeah. You had to get vaccinated for everything when you were a kid. Now, whether them vaccinations were bad and now we're seeing the effects of it 50, 60 years later, I don't know. I don't think so. But I think what Bobby Kennedy is against is untested vaccines, like the CV vaccine, where they didn't test it long enough, and they were saying, well, a lot of people, it ain't going bad. Some people are doing good. Some people are doing bad with it. Well, that's probably because it was something that they cooked up, boom, and put it out as a vaccine, and there was no real test on humans. Right? So maybe he's right. Maybe he's wrong in this point, lover. You might be right. I don't know. But here's the thing: all these people are voted in and work for the American citizen people. And once they get in there, we are no longer the people. We're the peasants. And now they have control over us. And it's horrible. It's horrible. What would you do if you, like I said, you went to work one day and all of a sudden you decided you were the boss? When you got hired in to change the garbage, you'd be out on the street. That's all I'm going to say. And that's all I can say. Does that make sense? I don't know. We're all scared to death, right? We done our research on this whole London thing. We love London. We have ancestors from London. But the truth is, London was one of the biggest mental institution countries in the world. They were actually taking kids that had no troubles at all and putting them in mental institutions right off of the streets. Yeah. Do your history. Look at the history of it in London. And what did they do? They shut most of them facilities down in London because there was such an uproar that, hey, our kids are missing. And they found their kids in a mental institution and they were like, there's nothing wrong with my kid. Yeah, it's very disturbing to think that they would even bring that up. Yes, some people need mental help, but to be locked away the rest of their life and they haven't, no, that ain't right. That ain't right. I got people with disability. I have a disability, but even the doctors, when the police took me down there to be reevaluated because I was causing so much trouble because they were trying to steal my property and house. They took me down there to be reevaluated. And I didn't spend but 2 days there, I think. And they're like, you got to go. Oh, what do you mean I got to go? They sent me here. They're like, yeah, you don't belong here. You got a disability. You're on medication, but you're not violent and you don't belong in some mental institution. And they released me. And they said, tell the police to stop bringing these people down here. That's exactly what they said. Now, I don't know what happened to me when I was in there because they were pumping me full of crap and stuff for 2 days, 3 days, or whatever it was. And they actually said, you can't stay here. You got to leave. This is for people with real mental problems. And you have a disability, but you're not crazy. You're not violent. Right. And they were pissed at the police. And we're finding that that's been going on for a long time. They took everything from me in the house. Everything. You got to be on this program. But you can't own nothing, Mr. Kramer. Your cars, your house. I'm like, I'm not doing nothing. I'm not listening. You want me to break the laws to be on this stupid program that you don't cover shit anyways? A lot of people, millions of people lost all their property and homes and everything. It was a scam. It was a way for them to scam you. They were actually telling people, and there was just a big thing on the radio a couple months ago where they were coming down on the people that were in charge here in Indiana, saying, "You're telling me that this person had a mental disability, but they had their own home, their own property, and in order to be on this program, they had to either sell their homes or whatever, or put it in other people's names. So the government of Indiana or whatever didn't know that you had money or your own property or whatever." And it was a scam. I call it a scam. I don't know if it's a scam, but to me, from where I'm from, it's a racket. A lot of people lost a lot of stuff, homes. A lot of people were drove crazy once they found out you had a disability. Uh, they drove people crazy right out of their homes. And then to top it off, the icing on the cake, President Trump, was they sold it to Hispanics that weren't even legal. You understand where I'm coming from, President Trump? A racket. And that's exactly what's been going on to millions. If you go to talk to these people on the streets, they're rich people. Most of them are veterans, right? We've even watched documentaries on them. Why ain't you living in a house? You're one of the richest men in the country. Yo, how you doing, Ricky Compton? He's living on the street like a bum. This is just going to cause more trouble in America. Now people are worried they're going to be locked up. Now you got 350 million people worried that we're all going to be locked up in some mental institution. When in real life, mental institutions are triple the cost of putting people on disability and letting their families or putting them in a small apartment or whatever. It's cheaper. It's cheaper than building mental institutions, which we're wasting our money. History repeats itself. They built all this crap in the 70s and 60s and everything, these mental institutions, just to come to where people were being abused and the states were getting sued more than they were doing now. Yeah, you're going to cost us more money. Now, like I said, some of these people are very bad people and have mental disabilities. And yes, they might have to do some time in a hospital, but locking them up for the rest of their lives, I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know about that. Because you have to think, President Trump, they're saying you're crazy. What are you going to do? Build your own mental institution with gold? Hey, depending on if Trump's building these mental institutions, it might be marble, gold toilets, gold faucets, whatever. You're going to have people going, "Oh, I'm crazy." Marble floors and everything. It'd be like a small apartment and everything right in the mental institution. You're going to have people just running there. "I'm crazy. I'm cuckoo." I don't think this is going to work out either. I mean, I'm no professional or anything like that, but I just think that's the wrong road. You know, you ain't got no money for nothing, but now you want to spend all this money to build it. When we just tore down a bunch of asylums in America, all dilapidated and everything, now you want to spend money to rebuild them. when the people stood up and said, screw this mental institutions, that people were being abused. Yeah, it's not. I mean, we all seen Shutter Island. Shutter Island is what actually was going on in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It's a perfect example. Watch Shutter Island with Leonardo DiCaprio, or DiCaprio, whatever his name is. That's pretty much what it is. You got people stressing out because the government, their own psychologists, their own scientists and doctors put these people on disability because they had a disability. And now you're telling people that you're watching them, every move they make. If this ain't Yahtzee-ville, I don't know what is. I don't know what is. It's just crazy. I don't even want to. All I can say is you got 352 million people just ready to snap. I don't know what to say. It's horrible. There's got to be a better way than this. There's got to be a better way than this. And the American citizens are not bargaining tools with these high-powered countries. That's exactly what they're using us as, bargaining tools. Well, we're the American government. We're shutting down. We no longer own the country, but you people now belong to China, which a lot of people are saying great, because China treats their people real good now. Their mental people and everything are, treated with respect and everything. That I do have to say about China and Japan, very tight families. They respect people. They respect the dead. They treat them properly. They take care of the bodies properly. And people are shocked. What are you talking about? Yeah, they're very family oriented. They take care of their families with disabilities or just old age or whatever. Now I'm living at a equal opportunity housing development, which, if you're from Chicago or the cities or anything, it's a government project. The projects, right? That's what we call it. But a lot of people are upset now at this place because they want to take all the emergency lights out. In my apartment here, I have a switch. I can hit that switch. If something happened, I had a heart attack, something happened, somebody got hurt or something. You got a lot of people here with disabilities that live in these places, a lot of veterans. If something happens, I can hit that switch and it sends an alarm out to the hallway, and a light blinks and a buzzer comes on. That's showing emergency. Okay. Do I think it's a good idea? Yes. I think it's a good idea to have that. But now a lot of people are upset because they want to take that out of the apartment complex that I live here, where I live. A lot of people are going, why are they taking that out? I have no idea. I would leave them. Maybe set them up where they're not hurt. What the problem is some of the people accidentally hit the switch because it's next to a light switch. We got two switches, one in the bathroom and we got one in the bedroom, right? And both of them are by light switches, so they get them mixed up sometimes. What would I do? Well, I would separate them and put on the light cover, on the switch cover, emergency light, emergency thing. but they're taking them out. We just got something on our doors a couple days ago, or saying that someone's coming around to disconnect them, so there'll be no more emergency lights here. If somebody's having a heart attack, oh well, you know. And that's upsetting a lot of people. Well, a lot of people are saying, we're not a retirement place here where we're set up with oxygen and stuff like that for the older people. It's not a retirement home, although we do have old people living here. But we're not set up as a retirement home where you got oxygen hookup in your room, you got a heart monitor thing, you got an emergency generator. It's not set up like that here. It's equal opportunity, although there is old people living here and people with disabilities and regular people with no disabilities living here. They just have a low income. So they're allowed to live here also. So it's very, very uh, a touchy situation here. Do I think they should keep the emergency lights here in case somebody has an emergency in their apartment? Yes. But I would reroute them, put them somewhere where they can't go to the bathroom and think they're turning the light switch off or whatever and hit the emergency button. What do I think? I think we're going backwards. They're literally, like Richard Wolff is saying, they're trying to drop people back 30 years ago. I think this is just not good. It's not good for America. It's not good all around. Now you got people flipping out thinking that everybody's going to be put in a mental institution. This is just horrible. And they're creating it. They're creating more of the madness. It's just horrible. It's horrible. I'm not going to lie. It is horrible. And we're worried, the ones that do have disabilities, but we're not violent. We're not out on the streets. We're not terrorizing people. Are we going to, because some police officer or some politician don't like what we're saying, can say, oh, he's crazy, lock him up, put him in a nut hut? Now you got 352 million people thinking that they're next and going to be shipped off to some nut hut. This is going to be interesting. It's going to get a lot more crazier in America, probably, folks, because they're creating it. I guarantee you the guy that just did that church shooting in Michigan probably had a disability and heard all this shit and flipped out. They're going to lock us up. We fought in the war. We, you got veterans all pissed off and everything. Yeah, it's not good. Let me see what Pointer Lover says. Can't they just switch the buttons and maybe a red button? Exactly. Well, it's like a light switch, Pointer Lover. Miss Pointer Lover. It's like a light switch, but it's right next to the toilet, right? There's a switch right next to the toilet. Looks just like a light switch, but it don't say emergency light on it. It ain't in red. It looks like a regular light switch. There's one there, and then there's one in the bedroom. But that is also next to what looks like a light switch. So people get them mixed up. People get them mixed up. So if they were done properly in the beginning, there'd be no mix-up probably. And you know, I'm not going to blame these people. Sometimes these older people or people with disabilities make a mistake and they accidentally think it's the light switch and they hit the emergency button. You know, yeah, it happens when they're so close and they're not they're next to other light switches and stuff. Yeah, I can see, and they're the same color as the light switch. Yeah, I can see how people are messing it up. You know, I agree with you, Miss Pointer Lover. If they would just change it or replace them where it's harder for them to hit it, you know, you know it's way over there, so it's not the light switch and it's in red, emergency light. But you know, I don't run the show here, so all I can do is agree with them because I've been threatened to be kicked out of here. You know, if you don't go along with the program, you'll be evicted, right? Well, maybe it is Trump don't know what Trump said. Well, these people don't know what the hell they're doing. Well, maybe they don't. Why are they here? Why they always use your name when it comes down to stuff, President Trump? Right? But then you find out the truth. Well, they've been ripping these people off for a while. All right, we are at an hour here. I'm going to end this video. Miss Pointer Lover, some great points there. Hello, Mr. Ricky Compton. Been a while since we've seen you. Uh, you got some great points there, Miss Pointer Lover, and I don't know why they would even talk about that when the bottom line is they're all trying to blame it on mental illness, and the truth is they should have been controlling the animals and not giving people that much freedoms. They're bullies, President Trump. They're not mental. These people are mentally ill and everything. They're out on the streets killing and raping and pillaging gangs and everything. No, they're not mental. They're just doing it because they can get away with it. They belong in prison, you know, but, you know, they're not mental. They know exactly what they're doing. You know, they know they're scamming people. They know they're raping and pillaging and selling drugs and everything. They know they're doing that. That ain't their mental illness. Well, he must be crazy because he's selling drugs and making millions of dollars. No, they're not crazy. They know exactly what they're doing. That ain't mental illness. That's just they got too many freedoms, and it's gone crazy. You know, I don't know. You know, you're the president, President Trump, not me. And you have to think of you have to think of humans. Do you know what it's like to have a son or a daughter that has a disability? You know how much torture they go through during life of people laughing at them and saying you're different than everybody else. I've been through it my whole life. Yeah, you know, so has my family members. They've done the same thing to my family. Right? Yeah. Used them and abused them. They're going to be coming down hard on this complex there. There's talk of a war. Literally. They don't care. Some of these people are like, we don't give a crap. And you got some vets here, you know, that are sick of the shit that they've been doing. So I imagine it's going to get pretty ugly. Indiana is the hub of all this stuff, really, from what they're saying, what these professionals are saying. This great white race or whatever they are, who knows? I don't know. I've been white my whole life. Well, I'm a mutt. I'm different nationalities all in one. And yeah, I just think it's a bad idea. All right, I gotta go drop this little munchkin off because her parents are home. So I gotta run her home. So I want to thank everyone for showing up today. Miss Pointer, some great topic points there. Ricky Compton, it's always a pleasure. Hope you're doing good up there in Michigan and everything. Uh, you folks have a great day, and I'll be back here in a little while. All right, get ready. I'm gonna take you home. It's time to go home. She's already barking. It's time to go home. You folks have a great day.